to implement policies. We want when we go to complain, we can walk somewhere that they listen to us and we tell those people to cooperate. And so that's the role of the Vice President. That's what we have been doing for so many years. So ladies and gentlemen, without wasting more time, I want all of us to stand up to our feet as we welcome the Honorable Vice President as he gives us against for the 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Financial Secretary. I am very happy that you made a very good distinction between the political vision of the budget and the technical vision. What I'm going to do here today is not to follow the footsteps of the minister. I'm going to give a political interpretation and understanding of the budget. The technical part, I'm going to give you what His Excellency wants and how His Excellency sees the budget. First of all, let me thank the Minister of Finance for this, and also thank the Chief Minister for this very important session. This is a very, very important session in the budgetary process. Like the Minister said, this policy hearing is a very important tool because it allows us to dialogue, to discuss, to engage, to shape and guide the discourse on how we are going to develop policies and how we are going to finance those programs. So, Honorable Minister, thank you for keeping this theme since 2018. This has been the tradition and we intend to continue this tradition. Today, let me first of all say another big thank you to the Minister and the entire Ministry, because it is refreshing to hear that the financial budget for 2024 will build on the gains of the first term of His Excellency. You know, the first term, His Excellency came with a vision, human capital development vision, and we realized that we've made fantastic gains in the area of education, health, unit. On education, I'm very much happy that the Ministry is going to keep the commitment of a progressive 15% increment for teachers. So by 2025, we aim to meet the 45% that was promised to teachers. Of course, we don't need to reiterate the gains we have made in that sector, but it has been very, very phenomenal, and we stand out today as a global champion, and His Excellency is no doubt to continue to occupy international fora, to talk about education and how we can shape the development of smaller countries like Sierra Leone. We also learned that this year, about 137,900 kids pass the WASC and they are qualified to go to university. What does that mean? It means we have to also position higher and technical education to be able to tap into the beneficiaries of free quality education. For you to take additional 137,900 kids into those institutions will require 3 things. One, investment in infrastructure, traditional classrooms, investment in additional lecturers, and then investment in providing enabling learning and teaching environment for those kids, including research. So, Honorable Minister, I would also want to draw your attention to that. But this is something we discussed in the last cabinet meeting. And like the Chief Minister said in that cabinet meeting, we look forward to a cabinet paper that is grounded on how we can shape sustainable financing for higher and technical education if we want to maintain the balance between the gains we make in basic education and the future of education in this country. On the health, Honorable Minister, since 2018, we know when we came in, we progressively increased the health budgetary allocation from 5%. We moved up to 11.37%. But in 2023, it was brought down to 10.2%. So I would really encourage that we get back to at least 11% for health. and also to strengthen project execution in the respective ministries. We have to look at critical sectors, really should not be delayed. That is education, health, and agriculture, because they are time out. Because in the health sector, you have 24/7 services. So if you delay a quarter allocation, it is definitely going to impact on health delivery, particularly given the kind of emergencies we deal with in the health sector. I'm very happy that we made a commitment to keep that. But if we can move from 10.2% to 11%, you know, we still have this the Abuja Declaration commitment. That is 15% of every sub-Saharan African country. They should dedicate 15% of GDP to health. 11% is reasonable because over the years, as a result of that 11%, we have been able to recruit additional 6,000 health workers. We have been able to expand healthcare services, buy new equipment, expand Medicare unit, develop high dependency unit in maternal homes, which have saved lives, no doubt. So I will argue for that. On energy, I thank you very much for making mention of the 7 district electrification project. You know, that is a commitment of, because we all know how energy can transform those local economies, and also additional investment in the off-grid power solution that have helped most of these small communities to be able to develop small-scale economies that have allowed businesses to grow. So I'm very much happy that you made a commitment to that. Of course, you just spoke about job creation. I will come to that under the Big Five. And agriculture, the policy shift. Even before the Big Five, we had a policy shift in the Ministry of Agriculture. And in 2022, we were able to register 22% of domestic food production. I'm happy that the Big Five is there. We are going to talk about that in detail. Of course, I also want to thank you for the investment you made over the years in the governance sector, particularly for elections. We were able to finance our own elections. I want to thank the ministry for that, and the continued support to the justice sector. The justice sector is very, very critical, particularly if we want to promote investment in this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to initiate discussions on the next 5 years, which means how do we build a bridge between our investment in human capital, development, and the Big Five. We have to build a bridge because we invested in the social sector. Now we are moving towards an investment strategy that will shape the future development, particularly of this country. The flagship program for the next 5 years is Feed Salon. And the reason being, His Excellency yesterday in his statement clearly articulated the importance of that flagship program. One is food security, that no country can claim to be independent if they cannot feed themselves. So, of course, we know over the years we have been food dependent from outside. We spent about $200 million to import rice in this country, about $40 million to import onions, maybe over $160 million of flour alone. So investing in agriculture will help us to reduce dependency from outside, and then at the end of the day, we are able to do import substitution, like the Minister of Agriculture said yesterday. That will allow us to save money. Equally, the vision behind it is job creation. There is no better sector in this country and in small-scale economies that has promise for job creation other than agriculture. But normally when we tell people that agriculture is the future for job creation, they think we want to turn everybody to farmers. Not necessarily. Because in agriculture, you have agriculture, you have processing, you have transformation, you have logistics, you have digitalization. So it's a value chain from planting to processing to transport to market. So all of this value chain has enormous potential for job creation. That is why we are moving on it. And then also, it's for cheap labor. And one of the reasons I was given a couple of years ago when I attended a social science conference in Europe is that while most investment companies, big companies, go all the way from America and Europe to Asia. It's relatively because food is very cheap. When you have cheap food, labor is going to be cheap. Because when you pay people, even if the salary scale is very small, they will be able to feed themselves and their families. So cheap food has a direct impact on cheap labor, and cheap labor has got direct impact on investment and economic growth. So I think feed salon is also seen in that light. But more importantly, it's going to stimulate growth. So that is a flagship program. I'm very happy that you made mention of that. That is a flagship program with His Excellency. And what do we want to see? Like you said, in the next 5 years, we want to see progressive increase in the budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector, up to 10%. We also want to make that sector to attract financing options. Financing options, which means we are not only going to depend on government. Government is going to support the enablers. But we create a situation where there will be massive private sector investments in that. I'm very happy. Foreign Minister made mention about that. He also made mention about the guarantee scheme that will enable private people to lend money, but also to focus on sectoral financing. In this country, every lending in the banks is 20%. We have to get a regulation to allow people who invest in agriculture to pay less interest, so that at least 10%. So if you lend to go and import, it's different from when you lend to invest in agriculture. These are regulations that I think the government will be ready to support. Equally, the second point, human capital development. I don't need to go over that. You already made a commitment that will build on the gains. Please keep people, don't forget 11% for the health sector. Job creation. Job creation, you know, His Excellency in his manifesto clearly said that 500,000 jobs in the next 5 years. And already the government is working towards an national job creation strategy, because we want to build a bridge between, like I said, between the investment, human capital development, and the economic growth of this country. In 2021, in this country, there were 241,000 estimated live births. In 2023, it is 304,725. So there has been 26% increment in the last 1 year, 26%. 2021 is about 241,000. 2023 estimated live birth, 304,725. What does that mean? It means if you have a country of a 7 million population, we are every year they give birth to about 305,000 kids, and we offer them free foundational learning, free primary school, free secondary school. In the next couple of years, we are going to get nearly 500,000 and more kids in higher and technical education. That means when they come out, they will require a job. That is why the job creation is paramount to the big five. If we want to keep the life, the hope of people, because the investment we are making in the human capital development, we have this budget is about a bridge building budget. How do we help us to build a bridge to the future in terms of job creation, in terms of feeding the nation, in terms of cheap food? So that is just to give you the statistics that if you take that target as 26% increment, you can imagine in 2025, we don't know the statistics yet for 2023. So every year we give you that statistics in public, so that you know that these are the numbers of Sierra Leoneans we are adding to the population dynamics, and we need to position ourselves to cater for them. So we are going to invest in skills training, but more importantly, like I said, to support the enablers. This explains why the national job creation strategy is capital, it is important, And in November, His Excellency will be launching that strategy that will going to give us shape how this government is going to support job creation in the next couple of years. Revamping the public service. Already the idea is to position the public sector to deliver on government policies and programs, which means to modernize it. And it is a way of making the public sector a little bit active, a little bit prone to technology use, to be able to modernize it, to be able to deliver on government programs. That is the idea. And more importantly is to make the public sector competitive and attractive. That is why the Wages and Commission is going to work with the remote welfare of public sector workers so that at the end of the day, we look after them, both in terms of improving their conditions of service and also providing additional trainings to position them to be at pace with our thinking and vision. On technology and infrastructure, Honorable Minister of Finance, I want to thank you very much for the investment you have highlighted in technology and innovation to support digitalization. Of course, that can also help government coordination, like the Chief Minister said, we will have government coordination, so that when we improve our coordination, we are able to reduce the cost of business transaction. On energy infrastructure, you know, when we took over in 2018, the energy access in this country was 6%. Today we are over 35%. We have three big challenges in the energy sector, and I'm happy that you spoke to those ones. One is generation. Although we have increased generation, it will interest you to know that in this country the demand for electricity has doubled. For example, if you take the western area alone, what we call suppressed need is nearly 150 megawatt, meaning that you need 150 megawatt to support the entire western area. Today, the big need of the western area in terms of electricity is over 85%. When we came in 2018, the big need was between 50 and 52%. Today, we are able to support the western area with a big need. We are able to evacuate about 85 megawatts of electricity. So we have increased electricity evacuation from 2018 to now by over nearly 35 megawatts. But what we intend to do right now, we are working on the transmission lines, the distribution lines. We are trying to modernize them around the eastern axis and also around the peninsula. When we do that, it will allow us to be able to evacuate about 120 megawatts of data, which means we will have increased by over 50% the big demand. So we are working on that. So, Honorable Minister, I want to encourage you to continue to support those projects for the modernization of the transmission line in the western area, because additional electricity means additional businesses means additional jobs and additional increase in revenue. So I want to thank you very much that you made a commitment to that. But additionally, we want to call on the Ministry of Energy to improve the governance of the sector. Because it is one thing to improve, to invest in generation, to invest in transmission and distribution, and to be able to evacuate about 120 megawatts. But the offtake must be very important, particularly at the time that we are reducing public expenditure to particular sectors. The energy sector should be able to break even. They should be able to break even, which means we cannot be spending money in the energy sector like we are spending in health and education. So they should focus on improving the governance so that at least at the end of the day they are able to collect back the cost for that energy that's being evacuated. I think, Honorable Ministers, I will just give you 4 concerns that I have. I will share them with you so that you take them. One I take note of the fact that we want to increase revenue, domestic revenue by 20%, which is a very good idea. But I want to also underline the fact that increasing 20% revenue does not mean additional taxes. It will mean also innovative way of looking for areas not to tax the existing businesses and then suffocate them so that at least is to review the tax regime so that at least at the end of the day, increasing revenue means also increasing government efficiency in the expenditure. I know that you also made mention that you want to reduce government expenditure by 30 to 25%. I hope that one will not touch those very essential sectors like health, education, and agriculture. In agriculture, we are going to 10%. But more importantly, let that increase from 30 to what reduction means. Equally, the other point I want to draw your attention to is I very much like the idea when I think the financial section was talking about if you improve on the allocation and management and governance of building permits, alone that's sufficient to pay public sector workers. I think reducing government public expenditure by 30 to 25%, side by side, we're thinking how to help those very sectors that have potential for revenue generation. You can invest in building that architecture to support them to increase revenue. I've always spoken about the tax regime. Also, is to support private sector growth. Support private sector growth. They are critical to driving the economy. I think there is a need now for a big round table, especially when you made mention that you are going to increase, that you are going to tax rice, GST on rice. It would be good to have a round table with all these investors, private sector, and see how government can help them so that the business environment can be competitive for them, while at the same time they can live. So I want to draw your attention to just two things. If you take the pricing formula, if you take the price today for rice in the sub-Saharan African country, in Nigeria today, in Guinea, the retail price for rice is $30. In Sierra Leone, it is $32. In Nigeria, it is $37. But in Sierra Leone, we need to develop a pricing formula for rice and flour. Because if you don't have a pricing formula, if you increase any tax, in those items will be transferred automatically to the consumer. So those businessmen will not care whether. So when you have a pricing formula, then you are able to distribute the 1%. You can tell the businessman that okay, you are able to assert the profit margin of the business. So when you assert the profit margin, it gives you an opportunity to renegotiate. You can say, for example, government can take 20% of the 1%. The people in Wataki can sacrifice 20% of the 1%. And then the businessman can take 40% or 60%. But if you don't develop a pricing formula and you just put an umbrella 1% on those commodities, the rest assured that the poor people in the market will pay for that 1%. And we don't want to see that. Yes. You know, so the idea is to have it. The idea is to have a mountain in that or that formula. And I think the Ministry of Trade will be helping with that. That pricing formula will allow you so that any increase, you know where it is going to be there and where it is going to come from. Or else, if you don't have that dialogue and develop that mechanism, believe me, it is going to be additional exploitation. You know? So that is just one advice I want to give in that direction. That brings me down to the very important need for the stabilization of commodity prices. Commodity prices. And the pricing formula is also going to help you to stabilize commodity prices. So that at least major commodities like flour, like rice, like cement, like oil, like onion, no businessman just get up in the morning and increase price unilaterally. let there be a mechanism for a dialogue on how to increase commodity prices. If it is foreign currency, the problem, the government can help you to get foreign currency. But you just wake up today, you are selling right to say from 670 to 690, particularly those commodities. Please focus the Minister of Trade and Finance on the stabilization of the price of those commodities. It includes a dialogue, it includes building an architecture that will determine how those prices, like we are doing for petroleum abroad. So we need to work on that. It is very, very important. Of course, I'm not going to touch on the foreign currency, the dollar. This is something we have been discussing. I want to thank you for the measures we are putting in place, because all this is very useful for prices of those commodities. More importantly, I want to end up. You see, like you said, but if you can only give what you have. If you don't have money, how can you give money? If you don't get money, you don't get to each of them. Because you don't get the money, you didn't tell me you went to the factory and say, I can't put my solar pay for my job. Money don't get to I pray for my so you have to have money to give money. And to have money is to create a competitive environment for private sector to grow and businesses to grow. So we have to sit down and think together about the obstacles of doing business in this country. We have been talking, but that is still a problem. The box is still a problem. Because that is what drives the economy. Because when people do more business, they are able to pay more taxes. They are able to create additional jobs, and those people will be paying taxes as well. So how do we drive the economy? Those obstacles to doing business in this country. And we also need to tell the respective ministries that how they treat the investors, how they treat business people that come to these ministries is capital to the growth of the economy. Sometimes these ministries, you say that investor here, the investor will spend 4 or 5 days, that will mean nothing. That is why we are talking about efficiency. Efficiency in itself, the more efficient you are, the more economically viable you are. So when you slow down, these ministries are slowed down, all these agreements, all these investors, all these things, you slow down the economy of the country. And at the end of the day, you come to the Minister of Finance and ask for additional money. If you don't have money, you cannot give money. So you have to help the ministry to make money. And to help the ministry to make money is those individual efficiency. I'm very happy that the Chief Minister made it categorically clear. If you don't have a sector plan, how can they give you money? Who is going to develop the sector plan for you? So we are calling for efficiency. Efficiency within those ministries. Efficiency has got a price. So, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to also supporting the office of the Vice President.
Now we are listening to the political economy. Also, first we listen to the economists, and now we listen to the political economy. What is the message is simple. So guys, it is in support of all the policies and all the measures to raise revenue, reduce expenditure, but they say do it cautiously, well targeted, and make sure it doesn't affect the vulnerable. So it means a lot of thought has to be given as to how we're going to shape these policies when it comes to implementation. So we have a balance. That's the political economy. Thank you very much for the Vice President. We appreciate all those guidance, and we are sure we improve. So now we are here to listen to Juldeh Jalloh. We now all know the importance of this program. Is going to guide the budget for the next 3 to 5 years. and we want to make sure that this agenda succeeds because the interest of all of us, all Sierra. So we also have a very young and dynamic Minister of Agriculture and Food Security who has been given this very, very assiduous task to drive this agenda of food salary. And we want it to succeed. We want the ministry to succeed. The Minister of Finance has laid out strategies on how we can bring out innovative financing to support this program. But we need to understand the program itself. So we are going to take the seat here and then allow him to do a quick presentation on the food salary, after which we will ask questions and clarification. So I'll now invite the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Musa Faka, to make the presentation of food salary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Honorable Vice President, Chief Minister, Minister of Finance, colleague ministers, the Secretary of Cabinet, Secretary to Vice President, members of Parliament, the Chairman, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, board controllers, civil society, the hard-working men and women of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Agriculture. Good morning. Let me please allow me to start this presentation with some charts and numbers to motivate why and how some of the plans were put in place for the next 5 years. I'll pause. So we've all by now are quite familiar with all the news headlines in the past 2 years now, at least, or if not 3, that's been about global price increases for various. This is what the picture looks like. For all sorts of commodities we've got, prices going up. Primarily due to the COVID crisis, the war, and conflict in Ukraine. Sierra Leone, the people will tell you, we've got lots of people hungry, and food inflation actually is driving the national inflation rate.
Can we have the code, please?
So on the one hand, we've got prices in the world going up. On the other, we've got Sierra Leone, where a lot of what we consume we import. So here's just a snapshot. We've already seen and heard close to $200 million on rice. Actually, on food, we import about $500 million. And I was shocked by this in the last 3 years. On onions, $34 million. On frozen chicken, $60 million. On eggs, $13 million. So if we've got prices going up and all we have is buy from the world, then obviously we're not going to have money to feed ourselves. At the same time, for the longest time, let's just say since 2010, the growth in the agriculture sector has been very slow. Now in 2021. And we've got it's contributing to the GDP about, these are all World Bank numbers. I just literally cut and pasted here for us to see. These are numbers that Ministry of Finance knows very well. 57% to GDP. By the way, that's not for us to celebrate, because what we really want is to reduce some of that number, increase manufacturing, as countries that are doing well at increasing livelihood for people are doing. Next slide. So, we've got all of that, and we've got tremendous potential, where we've got 5.4 million hectares of land, we've got a youthful population, and we can't feed ourselves. And so it's only fitting that His Excellency the President has decided for the next 5 years that feeding ourselves is a priority that we must take on. And yesterday he was even more clear on that. He says Sierra Leone should have no business importing food that we can grow here and eat.
Because if we can feed ourselves, we can solve a lot of the problems, as the Honorable Vice President just said. We can attract investment, we can solve a lot of the problems that we have. So I'm delighted to be here this morning at the policy hearing, because it's part of the process. It's a priority. They say, show me your money and I will show you what your priorities are. And for the Ministry of Agriculture to be the beginning of this policy hearing, and for the pronouncements that the Minister of Finance has already made, it means the government and the Minister of Finance is working very hard to make sure His Excellency's pronouncement and our effort to be food sovereign is not a farce. It's something that we mean to do. It's something that we put a plan towards to achieve. So the plan we put forward essentially tries to address these challenges that I just highlighted. And it's one that builds on work that we had already done in the past 5 years. The Honorable Vice President already mentioned that even before this feed salon program, we had the policy shift. What we did then was to make sure we cleared the way for the private sector to operate more effectively in areas like providing input, in areas like credit fund. And so very specifically, there are about 5 strategic objectives we have in the feed salon program. We want to be very intentional, those things that we just named. We want to reduce importation of rice, importation of onions, poultry products, eggs and chicken. We will increase export earnings, cocoa, oil palm. We want to create jobs. We need to youth and women. We need to revitalize the economies in rural areas. Hunger and malnutrition. 1.2 million people deemed acutely food insecure by WFP. We would like to have that by the time, at least by the time we're done with this program. And of course, we've got climate change. We have to adapt. We have to feed ourselves now, make plans, and make sure the people, the children, and our great-grandchildren coming after us can do the same. We've got specific targets on each of these, and we're targeting specific value chains for each of these. And we will not do everything everywhere. We will find ecologies where it's suitable to do rice, where it's suitable to do livestock, where we know if you do vegetables, it's closer to market, you can bring it. Where that will be the approach that we will take in the feed salon program. Next slide. The program itself it's built on. For each of these, we will develop specific initiatives, and I'll give examples on the next slide. But crucial for us. Same for inputs like fertilizer. It's very costly. That's vast majority, maybe 80%. And a lot of them are doing maybe 1 acre. If you are able to increase their productivity, if you're able to aggregate what they produce, that alone takes us very far. And so we will focus on that as well. And market linkages are so key, and I'll elaborate, which links us to the infrastructure. But we need to set up systems to be able to demand pool for what farmers are producing. Agriculture finance. Finance is so key. Everywhere people farming is not cheap for the most part. If you really want to do it as business, you need capital, and that's often a major bottleneck. So we'll address that. We would use technology to both reach farmers, to collect information for farmers, to aid us make decisions, but to also address climate change risk. And of course, women and youth will be key and central to what we do. 500,000 jobs in 5 years, we think we can get a lot of that from agriculture. So here are some of the, under each of those pillars, some of the signature initiatives that we would like to pilot. About 73,000 hectares of land in IVS and Boli areas. I just mentioned 30,000 irrigation, 30,000 hectares for irrigation. By the way, some of these we have monies for. For example, we have monies now for about 9,000 hectares for irrigation. We would like to increase the coverage of tractors in the country. For seeds and input system, I think our research system is so key. We've got very smart people, we've got Jalloh University, we've got people that if we create the right incentives, can do research, can inform and produce outputs that inform the activities and policies. We will not shy away from using technology, so hybrid seeds, I think we'll use them with the appropriate caution and planning so that we're not dependent on buying these externally. For cash crops, I think part of it is to rejuvenate. Some of the trees are quite old. We would like to renew these and refresh them. We will focus on the organic aspect, especially for cocoa. I think Sierra Leone is doing very well in terms of sales and promotion of organic cocoa. I think part of our effort will be to try to expand and scale that. Under aggregation, processing and marketing, I think institutional feeding, I've got numbers in a few slides down. I think will be very key for us. I think homegrown school feeding, homegrown feeding of the police, the military, and we're already in conversation on this. I think those will be catalytic drivers for production. We'll embark on those. Infrastructure, I think we all know access to markets. If I've gone there now a few times. It's beautiful, the ecology is nice, but going there is investor. It's a massive credit guarantee scheme. I think the main driving objective is really to have the private sector involved in agriculture. We have experimented. One of the key things we did over 2 years ago was the $10 million credit facility that we set up. Uptake was low, but it was because it's very targeted to seeds and fertilizer for rice. But the people that took it paid all. So from my point of view, that's a good thing. It's not every day people go to banks and take credit and pay back everything on time. This is a good credit. It was at 7%. We would hope to do that again. Digitalization, I think, is enormous benefits that come from making sure we have registered our farmers in a digital way. We know what they're producing, where they're producing. Extension services, I think also that now in the age of technology, the Youth Agripreneurship Fund is one thing that we want to try. We tried the Youth Children Farms last time around. We will do those, but this time what we want to do, based on what we learned, is we would encourage the young people themselves to tell us what they want to do, develop business plans, and have them access finance. It's only then can they do it more seriously. Can they take it as a job for themselves? Next slide. Just an example of the approach, this ecology and building infrastructure. These are just for rice. I think what we plan to do is for each of these main value chains, we will find clusters. And in these clusters, we will identify critical infrastructure. For example, for rice, these are some of the areas. I think we're not going to do, we know everywhere rice grows, but to be able to be efficient at monitoring and deploying our resources, we would identify the areas with the biggest bang for our buck. And in those areas, we would identify those critical infrastructure like the roads leading to them, the energy needs. And it's not cheap to do agriculture, it's actually not cheap at all. And for 2024, we estimate we need about 250 million. Agriculture is one of those places that indeed does get a lot of fund and support from partners. And already, we've got about 140 million to be able to deploy to some of these things. So I am very heartened by the Honorable Minister of Finance's commitment for the 10% in the medium term. And I'm looking forward to see what we get in 2024. But we know, and we've all been talking, I think times are hard, and there's already been prior commitments where we've made gains and that we must sustain. So we understand that. We also know, even when we put all these monies together, both what government can do, what the development partners can do, you see that we're not doing too bad actually. What we must do is attract some of these into the agriculture sector. If we do that, we think we can close some of this gap. And it's some of the things that the Minister of Finance was talking about that will help do that. Next slide. The voice and advocacy of the leadership, that's His Excellency the President, the Vice President. These are the tools that we've got. We're constrained with resources in many ways, but with policy, we want to go very hard and make sure whatever innovative policy we can drive to push to make change, we will do. So I want to motivate some of the policies that we want to do by this chart. This is coming straight from the Ministry of Finance's data from them. There's a budget line item called diet. Over the 5 years, you can see the numbers there. This is in 1,000 leones, 1,000 new leones. This is mostly rice that is bought for these institutions. It's 1.38 million new leones over this period. This is rice. This is, you know, that 500 million that we say we spend on food. This one, at the country imports. This one is money that government removes from its pocket to buy and import. So part of what we want to do is to see how some of this can be produced here. Look, next slide. How we can produce here and feed. And so as I said, policy and smart policy is going to be key. And with attracting private sector, with having the right sort of investments, our landlords, I think we need to think about them. We need to think about how are they enabling investments in agriculture, both for large and small, for local and international. I just mentioned that I engaged all the rice importers not too long ago, together with the Minister of Trade. Part of our goal, in most of the countries that have succeeded in actually being rice self-sufficient and exporting, they have engaged the people that were already in the sector importing. And part of our goal will be, and this is where I think the policy dialogue, that roundtable that the Vice President mentioned, from the Minister of Agriculture's point of view, we would like these rice importers to participate in producing. We would like to hold the fact that they haven't paid duties for a while as a bargaining chip and see how much they can do. We've started those conversations, but I'm glad the Honorable Vice President has encouraged a broader engagement on this, because I think it's so key for us on this particular one. And I just showed the price, the data on the rice that we import for all these institutions. I think the credit guarantee scheme is going to be so key for attracting investment that the Minister of Finance has just mentioned. I think that would really help private sector come here, know that when they invest, that government will be able to show up their investment in the unforeseen risk that may occur. We are in the process of doing this with the African Development Bank through the compact process, where they will put money and try to see for some of these big ticket items that are bankable, for us to be able to guarantee and de-risk their investment in that space. Our work through the National Investment Board should really focus on promoting food systems in agriculture. I think the issue of not having money, and so you can't spend money in agriculture, this is a growth sector. If you invest, we're not going to grow by not doing anything. We are going to have to choose that we will invest in some places and set targets that if we invest, we will get these goals in our growth projections. If we don't do that, we will coast. Agriculture is one of those places where we can sit down and say, we want to achieve 2% growth annually. It's very small. We want to achieve more. These are the investments we identify to do that. Through the private sector, through what government can do to facilitate that investment. Next slide. Partnership will be key, as I just mentioned. Coherence across MDAs. I think what we do, in fact, Feed Salon is not actually just about Ministry of Agriculture. It's the food systems and all the agencies and regulatory bodies that are associated with it. So it's roads, it's energy, it's nutrition, it's all these. So we need and policies that Ministry of Finance and Trade promotes. These are all things that hinder whether specific value chains will take off or not. And so coherence in all of these areas are key. The NGOs, civil society, development partners, and international finance institutions are all key to what we want to do. And of course, the private sector with all those policies that we just mentioned, with farmers at the center of it. Next slide. there's a lot of work that has gone into this. For each of these pillars, we will develop specific initiatives that will then hit the ground running with by 2024. We've consulted, we've talked to some MDs, we've gone in the field, development partners, private sector, that has fed and led into what we have in this. I want to thank you very much, and I really welcome your suggestions, comments, and how we can move this forward. Thank you.